It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the business owner of the podcast, The Athletes Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name's David Stark, founder, host of the Athletes Podcast. Excited to talk on Brandon Sports Talk and learn about what you do and hopefully share some advice, insights.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start a sports talk podcast?
I don't know whether I actually ever knew exactly that I wanted to start a sports talk podcast, but it came from a desire to learn, educate, kind of entertain. And, for me, I've been curious all my life about human performance, how to get better, whether it's personally, professionally, with relationships. I have just a curious mindset, and I'm always wanting to learn and apply different techniques, strategies. So for me, it was a way to have conversations with people on a weekly basis. Some of the biggest high performers, high performance individuals, whether it's professional athletes, entrepreneurs, coaches, they like hearing a variety of perspectives. So, a podcast was the new hip thing that I was able to get in on the trend and hopefully, share some insights and entertain some people along the way.
How did you come up with the name of your podcast, The Athletes Podcast?
It just seemed like a no-brainer. I want the Athletes Podcast to eventually stem off into different sectors. It's more than just a podcast. We're a show. We're there to really be an all-encompassing forum for athletes, parents to go to learn from, to connect with other athletes, whether that be locally or around the world. I think that's, we want to be a hub and a space for athletes to feel comfortable coming together, learning, educating, and ultimately at the end of the day, everyone becoming hopefully 1% better.
Of course, when it comes to the type of people you get on your show, who are the type of people you target?
I am looking for athletes, high performers, nutritionists, coaches, essentially anyone that is excelling, whether that be with their own human performance or helping others see success. I think one of the most amazing aspects is that we get to learn from now 95 plus different individuals who have their unique perspectives and bring their knowledge to the table, and having a 30 to 45 minute conversation with them about what they do, who they are, the story that they bring is pretty rewarding, just to be able to be a part of and to pick their brains. I'm grateful to be able to do that, and have surrounded myself with some great people that have helped guide the process along the way.
Of course, can you talk about the process of getting the athletes on your show and what you do?
I mean, it's a combination of a variety of different forms of outreach at the end of the day, whether that be through Instagram, direct messaging, personal relationships, connections. It's amazing how many people there are out there that are willing to and wanting to share their story. So for me, it's, making sure that we bring people on that have something valuable to share with others. And at the end of the day, if they're able to educate the people who are listening, and, even for me, from a selfish standpoint, I just love to learn. So being able to have those conversations is nice. And that's what, one of the methods now is people are reaching out because we do have a reach in the athletic space. So it's been an interesting past couple of months where the script has flipped it, and, people are wanting to come on more frequently, which is an interesting dynamic to go through. So something I know you're familiar with as well. And I think that's what's cool. Once you start building a brand, people tend to start colonizing around it, and you form your tribe.
Who are some of the guests that you've had on in the past?
I've had, 93, 95 to date right now, depending on when you air this show. And I mean, some of the big names are, Brad Keller from the Kansas City Royals, Curtis Gabriel for the Toronto Maple Leafs now, Ben Boudreau just won the Kelly Cup, the Mind Pump Media team. I mean, every single guest I've had on the Athletes podcast, really, I am grateful for. There isn't one person that has been the best or had the craziest story or provided the most detail, because every single one has, impacted me and a ton of others in their own unique way. And that's one of the beauties of being able to have conversations like this, right? Is you just get to learn from others and what they're going through, what they're feeling, how they approach the situation. And when you're able to, have a ton of perspectives on how you're approaching your daily life or your human performance or your sports talk, whatever it is, it's a pretty incredible feeling to be able to soak up all that information, apply it, and you'll see the fruits blossom.
Of course, have you had on any performers, like professional athletes that were former players, or are all of your players current?
Yeah, I've gone everywhere from 16-year-olds who are, leading up to the Olympic Games to, Chris Critelli, I believe, is the most experienced individual I've had on the team, and she won, 2 NCAA championships after winning 2 U Sports championships in 4 consecutive years. Like, some of the stories that we've had on are pretty incredible, to say the least. So one of the aspects that I'm grateful for is that we're not doing just current professionals. We're not doing former players. We have a all-encompassing approach where, we want to learn from every type of athlete, whether that be individual sports, team sports, competitive. There are so many different variables, and, the athletics has so many, aspects that you can look at and really dive into. So, I'm fortunate in the sense that I'm never going to be tired of looking into a new sport or a new type of athlete that's being able to perform at a higher pace. It's going to be an ever revolving circle that continues to get bigger.
Of course, with the Olympics happening now and in previous year, have you had on a lot of Olympians, and what was that experience like having them on?
Yeah, ton of Olympians. Liz Gleadle, who's competing in this year's Tokyo's 2020 Olympics. She throws javelin. We had Bailey Anderson on most recently in our 90th episode. She was competing in the freestyle swim, I believe. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Like, we've had other former athletes. I'm trying to think. Alex Landbaum, who was a rhythmic gymnast. I mean, it's pretty incredible to think back on about those conversations that I've been fortunate to have with those people. And there's so many to come too. That's what's amazing. And I think, even some of the athletes that we had on at the beginning, in our early days, will be Olympians in coming years. And, we'll be able to look back, grab this clip and showcase to people some of the seeds that we planted with the AP. I think that's one of the amazing aspects, as well as you can see, as things progress, like Brandon Sports Talk progresses, like the Athletes Podcast progresses, you see results long term. And, one of the very cool aspects of it all is the fact that you can see that, sometimes it's not linear in your progression, but it, takes hops and jumps and bumps. And, that's the part you got to love about it, is enjoying the process along the way, the ups and downs and everything in between.
What is it like for you to look back in your future and see all the Olympians and athletes that you've interviewed and be like, whoa, I interviewed them, versus, like, obviously when you were starting, you were probably like, oh, I can never interview them,
I don't know whether I ever doubted that I could interview them. I think what's been interesting is just, the more you chat with these high performers, you realize again, and it gets confirmed over and over again, is that they're human beings at the end of the day, right? We idolize a lot of athletes in society nowadays through social media, through other platforms. And, again, like I said, at the end of the day, they're human beings and want to be treated that way. So I think where maybe I was naive or blue in the process was just treating them any differently. And I think, as I continue to learn and progress and apply new strategies to, how to build the Athletes Podcast, it's, staying true to the fact that we are going for our end goal and our mission to educate and entertain. So if we can align with people that are interested and willing and wanting to do the same thing, that's pretty rewarding.
Can you talk about, of course, the different segments you have on? I know you have on the Athlete Thursday and what that is about and other segments.
Yeah, I mean, Athletic Thursday is the day that we post. We are trying to own Thursdays, get people moving on Thursdays, get people motivated. I mean, one of the difficult things that people encounter throughout the week is that they, again, have ups and downs. A lot of people don't like Mondays. A lot of people struggle to, get fit, get active throughout the week. And it would be amazing for me to be able to see in 5-10 years for Thursday to be that day that everyone gets moving, gets active. They know they want to be able to enjoy the weekends. Maybe they get their workout in, make sure they get it in on Thursday. It just, I also like the alliteration of the Athletic Thursday aspect of it. So, no real reason behind it. But if we come up with one through these kind of conversations, then that's great to be able to apply it. But just a day to hold me accountable as well. One of the biggest things is being able to stay consistent and post one episode a week. I think there's some ridiculous stat out there about podcasts and, how many X amount of them don't last past 7 episodes. And, one of the things you've been able to do is get past that number. And as has the Athletes Podcast team as well. So, for us, it's just a week over week, making sure that we're putting out the kind of content that we want to be, whether that's blogs, articles, written work, audio work. We are, trying to explore all aspects. So I love, being able to connect with people like yourself and learn from what their experience has been or what they're doing nowadays that's working for them. Because if you are not learning and adapting to the situation that you're presented with currently, you're going to flounder and not see success. So, my goal is to see that continued success over time. So I'm always watching and learning where I can.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before starting a podcast?
There's a lot. It was almost 2 years ago. Probably that, dealing with people is a life skill that you can never be good enough at. And I think that, comes not just from dealing with the people that you're having the conversation with or interviewing, but, your teammates, the people you live with. Like, communication and the ability to communicate properly is so important. And I think I underestimated that tenfold back in 2019. And I think now more than ever, it's clear having the ability to communicate properly is super important and can be very beneficial when it's used properly. So that's just, for me, as we're having this conversation, I'm, thinking about, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense right now, the way that, communicating can help you further develop other things in your life. I mean, it's tough to start a relationship if you can't even have a conversation. So, that's just one example, but I think for me, that's further solidified how important it is to be able to have that conversation or to communicate effectively with others.
What are some of your future plans with your podcast, the Athletes Podcast?
I don't know, man. How long do you got here? We've I want to do everything and anything in between, and I seriously mean that. I'm so excited to be able to clip this 10 years from now and talk about, like, Here, give you an example. I want to have essentially daily posts talking about athletics, sports, what's news that's going on in the sports world. I think whether it's a daily or weekly or semi-weekly shows on, people that are hot in sports, people that are doing great things in sports. I mean, I I don't know yet, actually. And that's me spitballing ideas with you for 30 seconds, but I really don't know where it's going to wander off to. But I'm so excited about the opportunity that I get to be along for the ride. And I have, guys like Jordan and Ian as a part of my team to help with it. At the end of the day, it's having a team around to work towards a similar goal is extremely rewarding, because you start to see the fruits after 2 years of trees coming up dry. And it's not easy, and by no means are we anywhere close to where we want to be, but you need to lay the bricks and lay a super solid foundation before you start building that house on top, right? And for us, that's we're still in that bricklaying portion of our journey, and you don't want to change that. That's part of the fun, and that's what's most exciting, is that we haven't even gotten started yet, put it that way.
Who are some of the future guests that you are trying to get on and plan to get on?
And I plan to get on every single athlete that has a story to share and who will be able to provide value to others. And I mean that sincerely. Like, I hope I'm able to feature some incredible people. I already have in the past 93, 4 or 5 that we have released at this time. And I can only imagine what it's going to look like in another 10, 20, 30 years. That's the incredible part, at least about YouTube and videos and Spotify right now, is that you can see the content as it's released, and it's only going to get more and more incredible as time progresses. So for me right now, I don't have specific names for you, but what I can and will say is that we're going to feature some pretty damn incredible people and some high profile athletes for sure. But that's also not to say that I won't be working with and trying to shine light on sports that maybe don't get as much attention, or athletes that don't get the recognition that they deserve. That's a big aspect for me, I think, is being able to use the platform to showcase some of the incredible feats that people are accomplishing. And it'll be really interesting to see long term what that looks like and the people we're able to share with the world.
What advice would you give somebody looking to start their own sports talk podcast?
Have a passion to talk about sports. I think if you have an interest in starting a podcast, or want to improve your communication skills, or build a personal brand, or build a brand, a podcast is a great way to do that. If you like speaking, if you want to develop those skills, if you want to become confident in front of the camera or speaking into a microphone, I think it's a no-brainer to do. The barriers to entry are super low, easy. I highly recommend it. I can give you a Buzzsprout code if people want to learn more. But for me, I would advise people to do whatever they want to do. I wouldn't say, hey, you should go start a sports talk podcast. I would say, hey, you should go and do whatever the heck it is that you want to do, and dive headfirst into it and embrace what you're going after fully and just enjoy it. Like, I think what gets lost right now is that people are always trying to make a quick buck, make their money, get in, get out, see a bunch of success, get a bunch of fame, post it on social media and be done with it. When in reality, if you're able to appreciate what you're learning along the way and apply from the lessons that you've learned, it'll be incredible to see at the end of your journey, whenever that is, what it looks like and the progression that you've made, because that's where you'll see true happiness at the end of the road when you can tell that you've done something incredible along the way, and you won't have that regret of that what if you had done something. So that would be my piece of advice, is to go after whatever you want to do.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media and podcast platforms?
Yeah, they can find The Athletes Podcasts anywhere. Go to theathletespodcast.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast will be there. And you can find me on social media at Dave Stark 1. That's the number 1. I was a hockey goalie. And yeah, I'm Dave Stark 97 on Twitter. Connect with me. I'd love to connect with anyone else who listens, supports Brandon Sports Talk, wants to learn more about the Athletes Podcast. I'm all ears, always willing to help, learn, listen, and chat. Thank you again, Brandon, for having me on. Really appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Thank you again, David, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Athletes Podcast. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, David, for your interview, and best of luck.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.